6:30 p.m. I will now call this regular meeting of the Coralville City Council to order on August 9th, 2022. Could I have the roll call, please?
Knudsen.
Here.
Gross. Wynn.
Present.
Jones.
Here.
Goodrich. Here.
All council members except Councilmember Gross are present, as is the mayor, the city clerk, the city attorney, the city administrator, and other staff in the audience. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Goodrich, seconded by Knudsen. All in favor say aye.
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 The agenda is approved. Item number 4, community comments. This is the time for the public to come and speak to us about items that aren't on the agenda or items that are on the agenda and are not subject to a public hearing. Each person will have 5 minutes, and we do reserve the right to adjust both the individual speaking time and the comment period based on the number of speakers or any accommodations that a speaker might need. So, is there anyone who would like to speak to us now? Okay.
My name is Diana Kaufman. I live on Holiday Road, and I'm here to discuss the Gather, Iowa development. There was, I'm sure you all saw the excellent article written in the Press Citizen, very informative, but it raised many questions in my mind. And Mayor, I want to thank you for raising one of them about displacing low-income housing. 37 units that we know of, which means more people than that. And in that price range, there is just, it is not an easy task. I think one of the folks on the staff said they'd find a place, but I don't think we should be cavalier about it. That is a real problem in Coralville. And so that was one issue. It raised a lot. That was one. Displacing minority businesses. Again, thank you for bringing that up. I don't think we should just ho-hum. That's nothing. In addition, it was stated that the developer is from Dallas, and I just wonder why local developers aren't involved. And that raises several red flags to me. One, right now, I'm sure you all are aware of finances. Because of the stock market instability, many hedge funds, equity funds, and venture capitalists are buying land and real estate. Iowa farmland, for example, and obviously looking at real estate here in Coralville. Not to impugn anyone's motives. They have a right to search for their best value and investment for their investors, but that money won't stay here in our community. That money is going to go back to Dallas. It's going to go, well, I'm assuming I don't know who the investors are, and you probably don't know either, but we could probably find out. But point being, it's not going to stay here. And I would think we would want to encourage development that actually benefits financially our community. And in addition, it just brings up a lot of issues about the affordability issue here, period. And I don't know if they would even hire local contractors. I noticed the two cable folks who are here digging ditches, they brought their own crews. They were not hiring local. So I guess if you're going to move forward, and a lot of people sounded excited about this project, to maybe put some kind of, have them have to create affordable housing or room for the minority businesses. It's within I think you all could do something like that. So anyway, more questions than answers. Maybe you have more answers, but it seems like this is an awfully big project and that there should be a lot of community involvement. It's going to affect the look and the meaning of this community for a lot of years. So just one person who read the article and thought, whoa, let's talk about that.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to us? Yes.
Oh, hello, and thank you for all what you do for the community. It's really appreciated. My name's Ralph Stevens. I live on Holiday Road. I also saw the article in this local paper, and it fascinated me that Texas is so overdeveloped that their developers are so desperate to find something to do that they're coming to Coralville, Iowa. Lucky us, I guess. All the developers we've got around here don't think this is a viable project, or they'd have picked it up by now. And so I really think you need to look into who's coming into town with this, because the money's not going to stay here. Same thing that she said. My real concern is that when this development takes place, that whole intersection's going to have to be rebuilt, and maybe one on either side of it. There's going to have to be traffic lights upgraded, probably more installed. You're going to have to put in heavier duty utilities in and out of there, and who's going to pay for that? Because I don't want my utility bills going up to cover it, or my property taxes going up to cover some developer from Texas, or even an engineering firm from Iowa City. I think that should be part of the developer's expense to cover whatever it takes to make that a viable property. If they can't do that, then they shouldn't be allowed to come in and do that. Why should the city have to fund this project? Yes, you'll get taxes out of it, and there'll probably be tax considerations given to them, but usually it winds up the city spends a lot of money on these things. And what if this project, which seems pretty grandiose to me, that'd be great, but what if that doesn't work? And then who's stuck with it, and what kind of revenues are going to come in from an empty building sitting there half done? So I really think some safeguards need to be put into this project by the council before it gets approved, and that the citizens should have more input into this, as well as the local contractors and local developers. So I thank you very much. I ask you to very seriously consider what you're doing with this ordinance and with this development. I think it'd be a great thing for the city if it really turns out to be what they say it is. But how many projects have not turned out to be what they say they were going to be, especially from strangers? Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
Evening, everyone. I'm Nick Katz with Shive Hattery, representing the project, and I'm happy to answer other city council questions that may arise. I did speak with Graham, who's the developer, just prior to this, about an hour ago, after hearing another question regarding the affordability aspect. And, there were already some comments made on that during the first reading, which Mike Knutson brought up very eloquently regarding the increase in unit supply to the market, which will definitely be a benefit. But in addition to that, and also trying to be sensitive to that, Graham also wanted to note that this is not purely a student housing development. It'll be open. It's not restricted, so it'll be more open to other residents that are interested in the development, as well as Graham and BKV, who's the architecture firm for it, are looking at a variety of different housing mixes for the development, so that there are not just kind of larger units, but also smaller studio units, which will allow a wider variety of housing pricing ranges, just to respond to the market and just allow a wider variety for people. Another thing that Graham was open to, just to continue to be sensitive, is currently they're the landlord and the current holders of the property. They're really only obligated to give 30 days notice to residences, but Graham was definitely open to providing a longer lead time of 60 or 90 days to residences, just to allow them more time as things continue to progress there. Similarly, I'm sure that they're working with the minority businesses if there could be leases arranged there, though I'm not aware of the specifics. But they'll also be given as much advance notice as possible. While I can't speak fully on Graham's and Real Development's business model, As far as the Dallas developer versus local developer, and I'm sure Kelly and others in the city have way more background and history on all the different attempts at this redevelopment. But yeah, I mean, there are many complexities with the existing conditions, as well as just a development of this grandiose scale does kind of require a larger, more national developer to really pull off just the litany of engineering and market-related items that have to go into pulling off a development of this complexity in order to produce a development of this quality. And also, I appreciate the comment from Dallas. Dallas is definitely, booming like crazy. But having worked not only with RAL, but other large multifamily national clients that also focus on student housing, that's just kind of their bread and butter, where they do analyze and kind of target college towns, of which we have the Hawkeyes, go Hawks. And that's just another reason which led them to target this as a community. There's a lot of, it's kind of started as student housing, but then as they continue to deep dive the market, they adjust their unit mix accordingly. Regarding traffic lights, Shrive-Hattery has performed a traffic study, which has been coordinated with city engineering, the DOT, and the MPOJC, Metropolitan Planning Organization of Johnson County. And at this time, there are 2 new traffic signals planned at the main intersections off of the Strip and Hayden Fry Way. I believe, I'm not familiar if the development agreement has been finalized, which would identify cost aspects of that, but a vast majority is going to be borne by the developer. I don't think that incentives or the cost aspects have been finalized. And then similarly to the traffic lights, Shrive-Hattery will currently be under contract to, as paid for by the developer, to do all the construction document design for the public infrastructure, as well as the site private infrastructure, which will be future phases. And those costs should generally be borne by the developer, although with that caveat that they're still working through the development agreement, I'm sure. So I think I ticked off everything, but feel free to call me back up later.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to us? All right. We will move on to item number 5. This is the status of funded activities. This is a public hearing for this item. This is an item that pertains to Coralville's Home Buyer Assistance Program, and the program is administered by the East Central Iowa Council of Governments. And we will begin with a presentation on the program. And I think Ellen Hobble, our Assistant City Administrator, is going to provide that report for us.
Yes, thank you. The purpose of this hearing is to consider the status of funded activities for the Home Buyer Assistance Program for Coralville, Iowa, as assisted by the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program, contract number 20 HSB 003. As required for this hearing, it is noted that A, for a general description of accomplishments to date, a CDBG housing contract in the amount of $195,495 was awarded to the City of Coralville from the Iowa Economic Development Authority. 54 applications were received and processed. 2 home buyers have been assisted to date. A summary of expenditures to date through July 31st, 2022, a total of $59,599.55 has been invoiced, $30,950.05 for home buyer assistance, and $28,649.50 for grant administration and technical services. Home buyer assistance expenses include down payment, eligible closing costs, and a home inspection fee. A general description of remaining work: 2 home buyers have been assisted, and a 3rd home buyer has a projected closing date at the end of this month. A completion date is anticipated for September 30th, 2022. And a general description of changes made to the project budget, performance targets, activity schedules, project scope, location, objectives, or beneficiaries. A contract amendment was approved by IEDA, extending the contract performance period for an additional 60 days to accommodate the upcoming closing. Due to the extremely tight housing market conditions, the number of home buyers assisted is projected to be 3 rather than the original 5 that were anticipated. And if anyone has comments, in addition to those heard during the public hearing this evening, they can send those to City Clerk Thor Johnson at tjohnson@coralville.org or by calling 319-248-1700.
Okay, thank you very much for that overview. I will now open the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone that would like to speak to us on this? Do we have any written comments?
There were no written comments.
All right. I will now close the public hearing and just say thank you, Ellen, for all of your work on this. This is a very exciting program, and I look forward to seeing the applications be processed and see how we move forward with this. All right. Any other questions or comments on this item? before we move
I
on?
do have a quick question for Ellen. So Ellen, you said that we are qualified for 5, to assist 5 home buyers, and we were only able to assist 2 so far, and then the third one is finalized this month. Is it because we can't find a home that is in that qualification, so therefore we cannot assist 5? Is that the case?
Right. We've talked about this a little bit at the last meeting,
And I missed that,
I know you weren't
yes.
here. So we did request an extension from Iowa Economic Development, and they were willing to extend it for an extra 2 months so that we could close on this third one where the buyer has found a home and is ready to close, or will be by the end of the month. But they were not willing to extend it for us to get those last 2 done. ECOG has processed 54 applications, so people were hearing about the program, they were interested in the program, but, you know, the entirety of this program has been during the pandemic. So it started out with not a lot of houses on the market. Then it became that what was on the market, you know, there weren't a lot of open houses during the pandemic. Then, you know, what did come on the market, there was a lot of competition for it, bidding wars, that type of thing. So it was difficult for people to get into something in their price range once they were approved. I think now the housing market is getting a little bit better, but they aren't going to give us an extension for it.
Would you say that there is a shortage of housing in that price range that prevent us from helping 5 homeowners instead of just 3?
You know, I think over the last year, I mean, it was just a really kind of a perfect storm nationwide because of the issues with people moving and working from home and wanting a different setup. So things that came on the market, they got bought up very quickly. And it was, you know, I think we've all seen the articles about how challenging the housing market was over the last year, just in all price ranges.
And what is the price range that these homes are in? Like, what's the brackets of
It really
prices?
would depend on what your income level was, and your income is up to 80% of the area median income. So right now, for a family of 4, that's, I forget if it's, I think it's $80,000. So, you know, and then they base it on that.
There's not a lot of home in that price range, right?
Well, you know, I don't know. I think a bank looks at that and, you know, they don't expect you to be able to pay for it. You know, they look at a 30-year amortization and how that works out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's 80,000 in income,
And then-
Income.
yes,
not
the
not
income.
$80,000.
Cost of the
Right.
home.
But
Yeah.
even 80,000 in income, like in this, you know,
Yeah,
it's
that's-
not really,
That's not going to pay for
You
a
know.
big mortgage.
yeah.
But I think, for example, all those homes that Blaine Thomas built and Summit Hills, all those would have been eligible.
Yeah.
So there are a significant number of them. The ones on Fifth Avenue
Yeah.
that we
Yes,
did,
Fifth Avenue.
all of those would have been eligible, but I think
But
the
they get
issue.
scooped up so fast. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
that's-
those, I mean, so even before it was even on the market.
Yeah,
And
so it's not necessarily, as Ellen said, it wasn't necessarily whether there was the market there, it was.
There's
the
a lack of
speed-
housing.
The speed of which people were buying houses.
I do think over the last even month or so, we've started to see more for sale signs, and they're lasting longer. But it's just, we've reached the end of the line on this project.
Thank you for all your work.
Any other comments before we move on? Okay, fantastic. Item number 6, Lot 3, Auditor's Plat number 20, address 802 First Avenue. This is the second reading of an ordinance that would rezone this area to a commercial planned unit development 2 district to allow for a 1,600 square foot drive-through coffee shop. Could I have the ordinance, please?
Ordinance number 2022-1008, an ordinance amending the Coralville zoning ordinance, the same being ordinance number 2020-1009, as previously amended, rezoning certain property located within the corporate limits of the city of Coralville, Johnson County, Iowa, and generally known as a portion of Lot 3, Auditor's Parcel Number 20, from C2 Arterial Commercial District to CPUD2 Commercial Planned Unit Development 2 District, introduced for adoption, second consideration by Councilmember Knutson, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Jones. Any other questions or discussion on this item?
I just had a quick question. I think you mentioned it, Dave, last time, but so what's being done on the south edge of this lot? Did you say there's some landscaping that's going to define the other parcel that's to the south?
Thank you, Councilmember. Can you repeat the question, please?
So on the south side of this particular parcel, I think the last time you said there's some landscaping or something that's being done to differentiate that lot from the
Correct.
restaurants that's there?
Correct. The actual escape lane for the drive-through is going to be located on the south side of this building. South of that escape lane is going to be layered landscaping. It'll be curved, and then there'll be layered landscaping to define the 2 lot boundaries.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Is that gas station in operation right now, Dave?
It is, yes.
It is, okay. Once this approve and the plan move forward, they have to go in and kind of clean that up, right? Because there's tank and there's all sort of thing, because you can't just turn a gas station into a coffee shop without doing some
Yeah,
sort of.
I mean, they'll have to do an assessment on the property, and the site will be cleaned up. To what degree, I couldn't tell you at this point in time. But yeah, any sort of ground disturbance are going on to make sure that the tank is in good shape and removed from the ground, and there hasn't been any fuels or oils that have leaked, so.
And is the development, the developer taking care of that, or is as a city, do we?
No, the developer will take care of that.
We'll take care of all
Yep,
of that
That's
from A to Z.
their risk, that's their expense.
Is there any due diligence on that they've checked the soil around that area to make sure that, to try to assess whether there's been any contamination, or they're just?
I'm not sure of what sort of due diligence they invested in that part of the project. I'm sure there has been, but.
Maybe you would think about that a little bit, but I don't know.
How long has it been a gas station?
I might defer to some other staff who've been here a bit longer, but
Over 30 years.
yeah.
So
For
it's
sure.
fair to say that there might be some spillage and something that.
I think there's
that-
been some monitoring of that, or perhaps even some soil testing over the years. So it's not like, and I think it was early 70s maybe. So I think the current owner may have had some testing done, because there were tanks replaced at one point. Is that correct?
I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. Yeah.
The state had no further action on the site back in, I think it was 1987. So, and the station's been there since 72,
Okay.
the building.
Thank you.
All right.
Scoot along.
Yes. Could I have the, good one. Could I have the roll call, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's me. Knutson,
Aye.
Wynn,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Goodrich.
The ordinance is approved on its second consideration, all ayes with Gross absent. Item number 7, Folsom's Subdivision, Lot 7. And this is the second reading of an ordinance that would rezone this area to a commercial planned unit development 1 district to allow for the master development plan for Gather, Iowa, which is a 12-acre redevelopment for the southeast commercial district sub-area. Could I have the ordinance, please?
Ordinance number 2022-1009, an ordinance amending the Coralville zoning ordinance, the same being ordinance number 2020-1009, as previously amended, rezoning certain property located within the corporate limits of the city of Coralville, Johnson County, Iowa, and generally known as part of Lot 7, Folsom Subdivision from C2 Arterial Commercial District and I2 Light Industrial District to CPUD 1 Commercial Planned Unit Development 1 District, introduced for second consideration by Councilmember Nguyen, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Goodrich. I just wanted to start off the discussion here by just saying thank you to everyone who has reached out to me. I have gotten a lot of feedback from the community about this project. I'm happy to see that folks are engaged, and I think the thing that I'm the most pleased about is that the feedback that I have gotten has been unanimous in the desire to preserve affordable housing and to preserve commercial rents that are also affordable, because there are a lot of BIPOC-owned businesses in that area as well, you know, in addition to the concerns that we mentioned about displacing the residents and the units that exist. And I appreciate all of the work that I'm hearing, you know, from the developer on, you know, listening to some of the concerns, and appreciate the note that there's going to be a mixture of different housing types. I think that that's always very beneficial. I know that these individuals have been great to work with, but I do have to say that I cannot support any development moving forward that does not preserve true affordability in that area. And I'm not talking about condos that are $200,000 or $180,000. I am talking about units that are truly affordable. And I hope that we can, as we look at other sections of the development, come up with some concrete solutions for how we can preserve some of that. I think we're gonna have to get, I know it'll be challenging. I think we'll have to get creative. I think we'll have to think outside the box. But I cannot in good conscience displace residents and not provide them with an alternative. And I know, you know, this is a area, we've been talking about this and talking about the preserving of the true affordability of that area for 4 years. That's the feedback that I've heard in the last 2 weeks, and that's the feedback that we got 4 years ago when we looked closely at this. So as we move forward, I think we should consider concrete plans, do some problem solving so that we are not displacing residents in this area, and make sure that we are communicating very well with both the businesses and the residents that live in that area. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I do have a question. Well, I do have several questions. I'm sorry I missed the last meeting, which I know that the council and mayor spent quite a bit of time discussing this particular items on the agenda. I did take the time to go back and watch the meeting and read the minute and everything, just so that I can you know, keep myself on the same page of all of you. I have spoken to several, if not all, of the business owner that is currently operated in that area. Some business have been there for as long as 15 years, 17 years, 20 years. That's all they know. they are mostly minority business. Actually, all of them are minority business. The people who live there are also minority. They work for businesses that operate there. They also work for a lot of businesses on the strip because of the walkability, of the area that they live in. And I check with all of them. Rent right now is affordable to them because they have built a business for over a decade, for 2 decades. And so that's how they can keep afloat. My concern is that if we go into develop an area, I'm all for economic development. But I get a seat here to advocate for the people who live in Coralville, who work in Coralville, who call the city home. And that is my duty as a city councilor. And I cannot advocate for economic development without, in the same breath, not advocating for true affordability. How can we, as a city, ensure that any development or any developer that we welcome into our city knows that that is what we want, that is our core, that we want the people to stay in our city, to live in our city, to work in our city. And if they can't afford to live here, to work here, they won't be able to be our neighbors. I know that's a policy issue. We have to look at our ordinance, we have to look at regulation, but I can't support this until I have more concrete. Promise is really not the right words to use here. More concrete plan moving forward that we know for 100% that those businesses will have the same chance to be able to go back into the same place and rebuild their business. The people who live there will have the same chance to go and live there if they so choose. So how do we do that as a city? How do we do that as a council? That we get elected to sit here to represent the people. We can't, in our conscience, say that we represent the people and not truly do that. I have struggled with this so hard. And I talked to the people there, I learned their story, and they struggle too, because they know nothing about this until the article came out. How would any of us feel if we found out that we don't even have a timeline of when we'll be out of a place to do business, out of a home? It's not fair, it's not right. I am all for that area to look nicer, it's had been an issue for our city. We all knows that, but we have to do better than this. And if we work together, I think we can find a solution that includes everybody, that we can lift everybody instead of just lift a certain percent of people who are well-resourced. Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments or questions or discussion?
I'd like to say that I plan to vote yes on this, and I look forward to affordable housing. My perspective is Coralville's still a small town. Coralville, there's room for everyone, and it might not be right in that spot, but there's place for everyone. I just want to remind us about the Sands property that is being built on Holiday Road that's affordable housing. I want to remind us that these properties probably haven't been inspected for a while because of what's going on here, and they probably would not pass rental inspections. And I'm all for giving people a hand up, a step up, and I really think we need to care. I believe we're a caring community, and that as we build in this area, we are also going to be investigating and looking and extending on down the line more land that will be available in that area that can be looked at as more affordable. This area has that flood situation and the utilities, and we really need to be cognizant of that.
Can we guarantee that we'll be able to have affordable housing and affordable storefronts moving forward? Can we guarantee that? We can't.
Well, I think that what we need to do is, as we look at some of the other phases of this plan, we need to come up with something that is concrete.
We have to have a language in
Yeah.
place
Yeah.
before we can move forward, because how can we move forward without a language in place to ensure that we are lifting everybody? Like, we can't move forward without language in place.
One more thing that I'd like to say is this property has been worked on for 30 years, probably. I mean, it's not just 7 years or
I
whatever.
acknowledge that,
It's
yes.
been a very long time. And it floods, and it's just, there's just so many pieces of it that we've worked and worked to get to this point. And it's just really exciting that now we have some, a joint developing that will step in and move ahead with this. So I believe we need to move ahead now.
And this
I
is just
think
one phase.
Yeah, I think the
This is
one thing that
phase.
everybody's got to remember is how we got to this point in the first place with this particular developer. And that the landowner was going to tear all of it down and put a gas station and a fast food. And they had the right to do that.
Yes.
And they can still do that today, is tear the whole thing down. And that's when we tried to get something more productive out of that property than a gas station and a fast food.
I recognize that it is a private property. The landlord have the right to sell the land anytime they would like. I recognize that. But it's also common courtesy to extend the information to the people who have been putting money in their pocket for an income. Because the businesses that's there generate the income for the landlord. And if the business was to move out, the landlord would not have income. So in some way, they are a united front. They operate together in order to keep each other afloat. So if the landlord decides to move or to sell, it would be common courtesy to let people know. And Nick said that by law, they have 30 days notice. 30 days. How do you move a restaurant in 30 days? How do you move a store in 30 days? Where do they go? Where do they go? Isn't it our job to advocate for the people that live in our city? I am just as excited, for that area to be able to kind of gain some traction from developer. I have keeping an eye on that area long before I have a seat here. I participate in that master plan for that area long ago when Kansas University was here doing a study. I know my community. I know the people that live in the community. I cannot wholeheartedly move forward until we have language in place. And since I have Nick here, I would like to ask a question. I spoke with Dave earlier, and there is a business in that area that has not been agreed to sell. So if Real Development go in and develop this area, they have to raise everything 1 foot above the baseline of the floodplain, correct?
Yeah, the finished floor elevation would need to be 1 foot, but the rest of the general development would not need to be rose up, so
Okay.
still need to make connections to the building, but
So
Yeah.
how does that fit? How does that property then? Will they then have to build a fall wall on their property in order to not be a sinkhole?
no, the current proposal with the property that they do have under control would be able to, because it's like on the kind of the south tip, everything's kind of rotated, but it's to the southeast. Dave's kind of pulling it up, but it would basically just remain at its existing condition, and the general grades of First Street are relatively unchanged, so there would be no effect to its current driveways or connection to like the to the north or west or south. So it would just kind of ramp up, and the townhomes would be, which is the proposed development to the kind of northwest there, those would be up a little bit higher, but there would be no effect to that property.
So would it?
Which property don't you control? Can you point that out to us?
Yeah, 198 is the current one,
Okay,
so,
so that's some of the housing.
That is,
yeah, it's like the coin laundry and
Yeah.
housing.
The one right next to it, I think, might be a housing too. So when we say 34, where's that coming from? Is that including those?
No. The 34 residential units in this area does not include 198.
Does it include 110?
Yes, it includes all of Brian and Bessie Ho's properties.
So I looked at the plan a little bit, and that's kind of, I think they called it Zone 5 or something, future development. I found this out from the newspaper. I didn't really, the fine print we get, it was hard to follow, but the newspaper article laid it out pretty well, as we've heard. You know, that's, I don't know, maybe 8 units in there that doesn't, you know, that's future development. That would not need to be taken down right away.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, without acquiring that piece, we haven't really, yeah, that's currently called out as like Lot 5 on the preliminary
Lot
plat.
5, yeah.
Purely because at this point, until stuff solidifies with acquisitions there, it was just a future development, so.
When and if you get the rest of that too.
Yeah, like, you mean like further?
Yeah, the one we just said that you don't have a contract with, 198
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, they're currently under contract for, you know, the 110 and 106 property.
I mean, I guess I'm saying if we can stage this such that you can preserve housing for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Like for a unit like that, I just by there and was paying attention to where the housing, or trying to pay attention to where the housing is.
Mm-hmm.
And I had noticed that was in the 5th stage. I would certainly advocate in the long term. I know this may not be eligible for federal funding for subsidized housing, but that does not make it ineligible for city funding for subsidized housing of some type. And I would be certainly receptive to that discussion.
Yeah. I'm sure, has Graham had any discussions yet with city affordable housing aspects? Okay.
so Nick, you said that it will not change the elevation of that property, so it would not affect much from, what was it, 198?
Yeah, so
What happened if a flood come?
the
So
same
what-
thing that happens today.
No, but
It's
doesn't,
flooded either way.
like, wouldn't the developer want to protect their property, right? And so if the flood come, that will, I mean, that's still part of their property that they develop.
No,
that's not their
that's not their property. I mean, that wouldn't be the developer's.
The one next to it
Well,
is?
next to it, it would be redeveloped per the floodplain development ordinance of the city of Coralville, and we are currently working with city engineering to provide them with their consultants to run hydraulic modeling of how this area is protected by a levee system that's been improved, and it flows to 3 different pump stations. So we're taking our preliminary design at this stage, coordinating with city engineering in order to have it go through a hydraulic analysis so that you can see what would occur during 100-year, 500-year event, and you can see the levels of ponding, because just like, you know, my client and our developers and the things that I designed, you never want it to be impacted by a storm water event. You also never want to have the liability of hurting adjacent or off-site properties, because that is just as bad for my client as it is for them. And they do want to be good neighbors. So that's why we're going through this painstaking effort to do our due diligence. And yeah, the preliminary analysis, especially with how we kept First Street matching existing grades, yeah, it really is showing really no detrimental effect. And again, we're still in the early stages of that, so our design will continue to refine, and there should be an improvement in the general drainage of this, you know, larger basin. So just as we, because the infrastructure there is just in really, really bad condition, and because we're going to be redeveloping it all, it gives us a great opportunity to kind of cherry pick and redirect the drainage to the pump stations that have better capacity, and because currently there really is no super well functioning storm sewer. So at the end of the day, this development would improve the drainage and stormwater management of the area.
And you might be able to or might not be able to answer this question, but and Rail developer is not here, so I can't ask them directly. Do you know what is the term of agreement is for the landlord to sell the property? What is the closing day, I suppose, is?
I don't know the specifics of their closing agreements.
I didn't think you would
so.
have that information, but it would be helpful to know what the closing date is, just so that as a council, we know how long the business have, the resident have. Do we even know that information before we move forward with this?
And
It could be tomorrow, for all we know.
Well, it's got to be 30 days right
Well-
now, and I'd appreciate it being at least 90 days, as you suggested they're amenable to.
Yeah, and just one thing to also note is like, it's also a little bit of a chicken and egg thing, because they like can't close on the property until they go through these levels of entitlements. And also with how Coralville entitles their properties, this is the PUD 1 and A, which Dave and I know I'm like a scholar in that from all the times we've gone through it. But so this is like the master planning level, and there's still an entire other level of P&Z and city council approval phases to go through for the PUD B and 2 process to get into more of the nitty-gritty on each lot's development, and that's when you also start to get into the architectural design elements. So there's still like a whole other one of these processes. And then also for this particular piece, because it has not been under control and there's had trouble contacting the owners, it also wasn't a part of the land use map amendment process. So it needs to also go through that level entitlement and a PUDB process before it would go. So those are many months of entitlements processes. On top of, after you get through entitlements, we still need to go through permitting. So there's still quite a lot of entitlements and permitting to go through. So it's not like tomorrow. It could just be a 30 days notice. You know, there's at least, you know, if you add up all those, it's probably 5 to 6 months at best case scenario. So
We do still have some time.
yeah.
This is, and that's the thing that I would emphasize, is that this is the very first step, essentially. And that there are a lot of the more details to be worked out. And what I am saying is that we need to be answering all of the questions and asking the questions and having the questions answered as we move forward. You know, how are we, all the things that my colleague brought up and that we talked about at the last meeting as well.
Yeah.
And there's still, so it's not like tomorrow this is happening.
No.
And tomorrow they're going to be we're going to be displacing businesses and
Correct.
residents. We have time.
Yeah.
We just need to make sure that we keep our eye on the ball.
Yeah.
What
Correct.
about, I'm sorry.
Oh, I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to add, just to clarify, this is the first of a number of steps, but this is also a very important step. If this were to be approved, council is approving this concept to move forward. What this is establishing is a master plan, a master development plan for this 12-acre site. What's left to be figured out, and what gets figured out as part of a PUDB site plan, which is a development-ready site plan, what's really left are the specific design components like landscaping, specific building design. Those are really two of the big fundamental components that we're looking at in that second step. So yes, there are a number of steps, but what's before you is a very important step. You are approving a concept to move forward. And Lori had mentioned, or sorry, Councilmember Goodrich had mentioned earlier that you know, we are looking at these residential properties. We do actually have inspections scheduled in the next 2 weeks for all of these units down there, just to gauge the quality, and as well as make sure that everything is safe and sanitary. I would also note that I reviewed this at the previous meeting, but this is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the Southeast Commercial District sub-area in the comprehensive plan, which calls for a wholesale redevelopment. This is a gateway into the community, and that doesn't disregard the discussion around affordable housing. That is an incredibly important consideration that Coralville, but also every community these days has to make. It is top of the list for just about every community, growing community in our country is affordable housing, and how do we address that? And I don't know whether that's something that gets addressed as part of an individual project. In all likelihood, that's part of a much larger policy discussion. How you mentioned earlier about this being a larger policy discussion, and how does a community address affordability, define affordability, let alone address it, right? It's a very complicated thing, and something worth researching and looking at, but most likely a little broader policy effort than strict application to perhaps one development. But again, that's not necessarily my purview, but nonetheless my input, so.
You had another comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that there's also the lease agreement between the landlord and also the businesses and the people, the tenant. You know, how does that lease agreement being honored based on this? If they said that they can move in within 30 days, and if there's a lease agreement that say your lease is not up for another 6 months, like how does that resolve?
Again, I don't know the specifics of their actual leases or anything like that, but I do know, because Graham mentioned it earlier today, is that the commercial tenants do have a longer lead time. I don't know the specific of it, but it is a longer lead time. And just because I have experience with it in other instances, like if they do have an active, if the business does have an active lease, then the landowner cannot just, you know, kick them out because they legally can't if a lease is active. So again, I don't know the specifics, but you know, if they are able to actually, they would not have a valid lease if that were to be the case. So
Yeah, so what if they don't have an active lease? They have been going month to month, and the landlord have been holding the lease, will not release the lease.
yeah, I can't speak to specifics of that, but
Can you assure us that if, that any leases they have will be upheld?
I can't speak
He's-
about,
that-
I
that's
can't
not
speak to the
his-
lease.
Yeah, that's
I don't
That would
not
be the
within the
developer.
scope of what he
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
That would be, you know,
I'm sorry, Nick, that you are here getting all
Yeah,
this
that's okay.
stone
That's
toward
not-
you, because
yeah.
you're the only person
Yeah,
here
that's okay.
that's speaking on behalf of this items on
Yeah.
our agenda.
That's fine.
And I wish that, you know, we had a full house,
Sure.
like the last meeting,
Yeah.
because we'll be able to get a lot of these questions answered.
Sure.
So, and I appreciate your patience.
Yeah.
I do think Kevin addressed that. That question was asked at the last council meeting, and Kevin addressed the lease issue. I mean, a lease, if they have a lease, it's a legal document,
Yes.
and they can't void the lease if they have a valid lease. Now, if they don't have a lease and the landlord's been going 30 days at a time, I mean, that's an issue with the landlord, but they would not have a legal lease then. I think that was Kevin's response.
Any other questions or comments or discussion on this item?
Big picture, I haven't gotten my head around what the city will be contributing to this project in the long term.
I don't think at this point we know what that would be, and that would be something that would come up at the next stage when you actually get the, you know, the physical plan of how and what you're gonna be able to do there.
So I guess what sort of incentive as a city do we have for the developer to go in? Like what's incentive, right?
What's our incentive?
Yeah, what is the incentive that we give to the developer as a city?
Right now, we don't have
We
any.
don't.
We don't have any
Okay.
agreements with anything.
Yeah.
What we've done in other TIF areas is, to my understanding, you know, we're gonna have it's a indefinite TIF. Is that right?
This is not a TIF area, though.
Yeah, it is a
It
TIF
is a
area.
TIF area? Oh, okay.
I thought it was.
Mhm.
And I believe, you know, we've given, part of that increased revenue back to make the development feasible for a certain period of time.
Yeah, we have done that.
Yeah, we've done that, and
And I would expect that would be the request here, because all of the infrastructure needs to be replaced. Every street, storm sewer, utility, all of it needs to be replaced.
I guess I had the exact same expectation, but that's when we'll have a major input
Yeah.
into the development of that project, and whether, there are sections of it that can be carved out as affordable with maybe city resources that come in directly from that TIF. Is that all legal?
Yeah, I mean,
What's that?
if you have willing parties on both sides, yes.
Yeah. So that's, to me, an important step down the road that we all are, I'm sure, more than anxious to consider. At least I am.
Anything else?
I do have one more question. I may have missed it last time. I did not know this developer focused on college towns and student developments. I guess I wasn't picturing this as a student development, but what you said, it's not exclusively student. Do we have an idea of the breakdown?
You should watch the P&Z meeting, Mike.
Yeah, that's helpful. But,
Yeah, I'm sure they do a variety, multifamily housing is their kind of niche, but I'm sure that they target, university campuses as a part of their portfolio. And then as they're just, it goes through tons of iterations of different pro formas and market analysis. And as they get more and more familiar with the area, they kind of hone in on what the right product is. In this case, and BKV and Graham would know more about those iterations, but it probably had a higher student living focus just with proximity to campus. But again,
Certainly professional students you would think would be very interested in this area, and residents and what have you,
yeah.
given its proximity to the professional schools on that side of campus.
So yeah, that answers your question.
But not necessarily that focused, or is that's still a work in progress? Is that what I just heard?
Yeah, it's currently, now there is no restriction. It's kind of just open multifamily and they've increased the mixture of the units that they're providing. So
Right.
So yeah, it is not dedicated student living.
Okay.
So it may have been at one time, but now it's not.
Thank you.
All right. Any other thoughts? Okay. Roll call, please.
Quinn,
Nay.
Jones,
Aye.
Goodrich.
aye.
Knutson.
Aye.
Ordinance passes its second consideration, 3 ayes, 1 nay. Item number 8. This is the second consideration of a zoning code amendment. These amendments reflect changes to better facilitate and direct positive development and redevelopment in Coralville. These changes include removing the R0 Estate Residential District, changes to comply with state code, which prohibits cities from regulating no-impact home-based businesses, changes to comply with state code, which prohibits cities from regulating consumer fireworks sales in commercial and industrial districts, adding more detailed and comprehensive design guidelines for new commercial and industrial buildings and additions, changes to address the parking of RVs and boats, and allowing accessory structures in rear and side yards, and amendments to allow front yard setback adjustments. Could I have the ordinance, please?
Ordinance number 2022-1010, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Coralville, 2011, as previously amended, making changes to Chapter 165 of the Coralville zoning code, is introduced for adoption, second consideration by Councilmember Jones, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Nguyen. Any questions, comments, or discussion on this item? All right, roll call, please.
Jones.
Aye.
Goodrich. Knutson.
Aye.
Nguyen.
Aye.
Ordinance passes its second consideration, all ayes, with Gross absent. Item number 9, engineering services agreement. This is with Terracon Consultants for the Pathy property monitoring well study. And this agreement is not to exceed $10,500. Could I have the resolution, please?
Resolution approving an engineering services agreement with Terracon Consultants, Inc. for the Pathy property monitoring well study, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Goodrich, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Jones. Any questions or comments on this item? Roll call, please.
Can we?
Oh, sorry, I am sorry. Go ahead.
I know we've talked a little bit about this location in the past. Just kind of good news that we might be able to get this developed soon. Is that what's?
Well, this is just a next step in, this is something that goes back to 2018 when those monitoring wells were stopped. We did not continue with, or the land owner didn't continue with monitoring those wells, and so this is the next step in to continuing that process and hopefully getting a clean bill of health for the property.
And we need to do that now because we have a developer interested in the property, or not really?
Not really. Because we had an agreement back to 2018 where the work should have been continued, we need to get back with the state and get this all cleaned up.
Okay.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Knutson.
Aye.
Nguyen.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Resolution is approved, all ayes, with Gross absent. Item number 10, landscape.
9B.
Oh, I am so sorry. I missed 9B. Thank you. Item B, this is for a resolution approving an engineering services agreement with Terracon Consultants, and this agreement is not to exceed $15,500. Could I have the resolution, please?
Resolution approving an engineering services agreement with Terracon Consultants, Inc. for the 4th Avenue Place Land Assembly Phase 2 Environmental Assessment, introduced by Councilmember Knutson, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Goodrich. Questions or discussion on this item? Roll call, please.
Knutson.
Aye.
Nguyen.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Resolution is approved, all ayes, with Gross absent. Item number 10, landscape architectural contract. This is for an agreement with Bolton and Mink for a park at the point of Clear Creek and Iowa River for a future grant application, and this agreement is not to exceed $20,511. Could I have the resolution, please?
Resolution approving a landscape architectural agreement with Bolton and Mink for a park at the point of Clear Creek and the Iowa River for purposes of a future grant application, introduced by Councilmember Nguyen, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Jones. Questions or discussion?
Yeah, this would be in preparation for a grant that the Iowa City Area Convention Visitors Bureau is putting together in conjunction with Iowa City, Johnson County, and Coralville, focused on the river and trails both. And this would give them the information that they need for our part of the grant application.
How much we're gonna ask for?
Total, they're looking at $5 million for the Johnson County, us, and Iowa City. A significant portion of it would be come to Coralville. You have to have a 60% match, and we can use things that's already committed. The trail that's part of the Interstate 80 First Avenue interchange, the money that's being dedicated for that, and the work we're doing on Clear Creek can both be used as matches for this grant. So a majority of the match countywide actually comes from Coralville.
Oh.
So how big an area does
This-
this include?
For this part,
Yeah,
this part would just primarily be the old concrete plant.
oh, okay.
And we've got the preliminary, they did a study a long time ago with the general concept, but we need some more details because there's old bunkers there that need to be removed and some of those kinds of things, and that's really what we need some help with.
Kelly, have we thought about that electrical, I guess, substation that sits there and a bit of an eyesore, if I can say so? I bike by it almost every day. It takes up probably 2/3 of that space, and a little bit at the end. Nice little park there, but it would still be next to this
Yeah.
electrical substation. Any chance in the distant future that that could be moved, or is that off
Probably.
the table?
It would be a long time. That's a major substation for not only Coralville, but the university hospitals, and that's part of that whole system, and they've spent a lot of money trying to make that flood-proofed just because of all of the issues that they have there.
Oh, did they contribute to the wall with that?
They have helped with some of the work there, and so they're gonna do their best in trying to screen it, but as you know, it's, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just curious.
Any other questions? All right, roll call, please.
Quinn,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Goodrich,
Aye.
Knutson.
Resolution is approved, all ayes with Gross absent. Item number 11, Iowa River Landing Retail Lease. This would be an additional or second amendment that would extend the license agreement for an additional 3 months while the parties work on a longer-term lease. And this is with Coffee Emporium LLC. Could I get the resolution, please?
Resolution approving amendment number 2 to that certain license agreement with Coffee Emporium LLC, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Jones, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Wynn. Questions or discussion on this item? Roll call.
Jones,
Aye.
Goodrich. Knutson.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Resolution is approved, all ayes with Gross absent. Item number 12, I would consider a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Mayor, I would like to ask council to consider a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented, A to N.
Okay, moved by Huynh, seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Goodrich. Roll call, please.
Aye. Knutson.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
The consent calendar is approved, all ayes with Gross absent. Item number 13, City Administrator's Report.
I'd just like to remind people that the Fifth Street Social will be this Saturday for August 13th from 4 to 10 o'clock, and there's lots of activities planned for families, kids, adults, and they can still use a few volunteers, so please go on the coralville.org website and see where you might fit in. And that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Item 14, Mayor's Report. I just have a couple of things. I first want to say thank you to everyone who participated in National Night Out last week. It was a lot of fun. I always love this event, going and meeting our neighbors and chatting with folks. It's just one of my favorite community events, and I went with Keith, and we actually visited a party where the kids made us a really nice sign that said, "Thank you, City Council." I was going to bring it this evening, but I forgot it. I was rushing out the door. But it was a lot of fun, and thank you to all of the people that held parties in their neighborhood. We really, truly enjoyed this event. I also just wanted to offer condolences to the family and friends of Wagewu Ferris, who was a Coralville resident who died, unfortunately, saving an 8-year-old child from drowning in the Iowa River. Is an absolutely tragic event, and I just wanted to say that we are thinking of his friends, we're thinking of his family, we're thinking of everybody that knew him and cared for him. I also want to extend condolences to the City High community. Mr. Ferris was a custodian at City High, and he was a very important part of that community as well. So we're thinking of everyone and sending lots of love and lots of light to everyone who knew him. And also just wanted to say that I'm also very excited about the 5th Street Social. Please get out and take advantage of this really fun community event. It's a great way to check out the businesses that are along 5th Street, and it's a really great tradition that extends 101 years. Am I correct on that?
Wow.
The first street dance was
yes.
when
Yep.
5th Street was paved 100 years ago, and they had a street dance to celebrate it,
That's
right?
correct. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So this is a long-held community tradition, and it's just a lot of fun. So hope to see everyone there. And that is all I have. All right, City Attorney's report.
I just want you to know that I haven't missed Kevin at all,
There we go.
and I have nothing extra to add.
Okay.
Who needs Kevin?
All right, committee and council members report. We'll start down at this end with Councilmember Goodrich.
Okay, we've missed Kevin, so
Yeah.
you tell him that. I enjoyed National Night Out also with Mike. We made it to 6 different places. Each of us had 6. It was just really fun to be in the community and talk with people. And 5th Street Social, I'm looking forward to that. And bring your lawn chairs if you want. There's a lot of seating there, but you might want your own chair too. And just want to announce that the Friends of the Library did have their library sale, book sale this weekend, and approximately 525 customers were there. And the free will offering was $4,817.44 that they made to help with our library. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Jones.
Don't have a lot to add to what's already been said. My condolences as well to the Ferris family, a very tragic thing. I did want to thank the 12 groups of people that organized the National Night Out. It was as I told Lori, it exceeded my expectations by a long shot, and I just appreciate community members being willing to host those. It was really a wonderful night, and really enjoyed attending those.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to say that I am sorry to have missed the night out.
National Night Out.
Yeah. I participated in that for the first time last year, and I had a lot of fun. This year, I didn't plan well, and I was out of town for that day. But sound like all the council and mayor had a lot of fun, and hopefully I can plan better next year and be able to celebrate with the community. I want to let the community member know that there is, back to school is around the corner. We have 2 weeks. I know, don't remind me. I got 4 kids. But with back to school, there come a whole host of things that we need to get ready for. And so if you are looking for school supply or haircuts or anything like that, put it on your calendar. The Subdivision is going to take place next Wednesday, August 16, from 6 to 8 at Life Church. It is open to anybody that live in Coralville. They do provide backpack and shoe and haircut, and all of those material is first come, first serve. I don't know if there will be food available, so maybe eat dinner before you come. And then free produce stands that take place at the parking lot of the Coralville Food Pantry. That is next Friday, August 19, from 4:30 until 6 o'clock. And anybody can come by and take home some fresh produce, local fresh produce. And that's all I have.
Fantastic, thank you. And last but not least, Councilmember Knutson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Agreed, great night out at National Night Out with Lori. We had a lot of fun. Glad to see Kelly here, back and recovering, and what a wonderful week of ragbri you must have had. It was just gorgeous weather, so hope you enjoyed that. Couple things on sustainability. Been in discussions or communicating with Aaron Tabakhorst, our recycling center coordinator. There's an article recently in the Press Citizen about our ability to compost food waste, and Iowa City's been very active, and I was trying to figure out why we couldn't compost food waste here in Coralville, and it turns out we can put those in your recycling bag, but the bag is very confusing. It says, used for only leaves, lawn clippings, garden residue, plants, and weeds. I took that to mean you couldn't put food waste in there. Not a crazy assumption. So reached out to Aaron, and he explained that, those are old bags, and the next time they recycle through, they'll get that updated so that it's clear that you can put food waste in there, and there's no limit. That's one of the unique things about Iowa City, I guess, recycler or composting bin. They don't have limits on how much food they can put in there. Kind of a industrial scale composting. So encourage people to take advantage of that. And the other sustainability thing I can't help but comment a little bit on is the Inflation Reduction Act. And that passed the Senate this weekend. I do think that is a very big deal. Reaches goes a long ways toward reaching national goals for greenhouse gas emissions. And for the city, might provide an opportunity. I thought about it in the context of the development that we're talking about in Southeast. If we ramp up and, big incentives to buy electric cars, we're going to need the infrastructure to charge those. And when you build a parking garage, like they'll be planning, I want to make sure we encourage them to consider taking advantage of financial aid that will support, charging stations throughout the city and parking structures. I know we've done a little bit recently in the IRL, but I suspect those opportunities with this bill will be increased and strong. We're right here on 80 and having a rich core of places to charge electric vehicles will be very important to keep track of and take advantages of those. And that's just one of many, many things in that bill. But I thought that could directly impact us and some of the things we do as a city. That's all I got, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Moved by Nguyen, seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Knutson. All in favor say aye.
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 All right, we are adjourned.